Oh, good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining me this morning. My name is Dan from Duck Vinci and Next Gen Planners, and this morning we're going to be looking at how financial planners can use social media to get leads. And just before we start, because we've got a lot to get through this morning, if you do have any questions, there's either Q&A or you can pop them in the chat and we'll get through them either throughout or we'll get to them at the end. And if anyone's wondering whether this will be recorded, it will be. And of course, I'll send the slides out afterwards so you can have a look at them as well. But if you do have any questions or you want to get involved in the conversation, the chat is there and the Q&A is down there as well. So give them a smash. So I'm going to share my screen. And if some kind soul in the audience could just give me a thumbs up or something in the chat, just to let me know you can see those, that'd be amazing. Thank you very much, Emily. You're the first person who did it. So thank you very much. So let me put this on full screen. There we go. So before we start, I just want to say that, firstly, hats off to you guys for coming to this. I know that social media in our profession is something that can often get scoffed at and get scorned at because not many people have much success from it. So thank you so much for trying to put yourself out of the comfort zone and actually try and do something about this, because we can use this as our profession and we can get something from it as well, no matter what we've done in the past. So today, what we're going to look at is firstly, what works on social media to get leads. So we'll be looking at some content ideas. We'll be looking at some tools that you can use to get the most out of it and what the kind of trending things are at the moment that are going to be really, really useful. And on the other side, we're going to be looking at the things that perhaps don't work, or the things that you may think work, but don't actually work. And then you get frustrated with social media because it isn't giving you what you want. And some of the things you'll hear today, you'll no doubt have heard already, but some of them will be new. And some of them will be things that you already know that you just haven't put into practice yet. But hopefully by the end of the day, you will be inspired and you'll be motivated to put some of these things into practice. And what I will say is as well, by the way, that I have got a rotten cold. So if I do need to cough at any point, I'll try to remember to mute myself so I don't hurt your ears as well. So obviously today's session is called How to Use Social Media to Get Leads. And usually what I see is this journey. Now, the first and the second one can often swap around a little bit, but usually the journey on social media in order to get leads, it usually starts with obviously getting followers. And to get followers is a hard thing to do, but that's the main thing that you need to do, because otherwise nobody will be able to see what you're putting out there. The second way on the journey is influence, and that is you leaving an impact on your audience, and that'd be through great content, through creating great conversations, or just resonating with people in general. That tends to be the way that it goes, or people just thinking it's a good idea. And then eventually that does lead to leads. And I say eventually because it takes some time. And we'll talk a little bit about this later on in the presentation as well, but it does take time to get this kind of stuff from social media. It's hard work. And that's why a lot of people don't really find much from it, is because it is hard work, but it can be done. So I've put this out there on social media a few times, and I've used this in a few previous presentations, but just to go through it again, people use social media. And if you think about how you use social media, you will probably use it for the left side, as in the green with the tick. You go on there to laugh. Mainly people use TikTok and Instagram to go on there and laugh and find something funny. They go on there to waste time, to distract themselves from their daily lives. They go on there to be nosy about what other people are doing. But also they go on there to build relationships. If you think about all the social media platforms, really what they're doing is, and I'm a big fan of this obviously, is creating a community. People message each other on those platforms. People get involved with conversations on those platforms. It's allowed us to be closer together than we've ever been. So, and further apart as well, but we're not going to talk about that today. But if you could see it in the general shopping sense, it would be people who are on social media are just browsing. They're not necessarily, on the other side, they're not necessarily shopping. They're not going on there in order to be sold to, as much as you may think. They're not going on there to learn about your products or anything like that. They're not actively going on there. They might learn about your products, but they're not actively going on there to learn about your products. And they're not going on there to read boring stuff. So it's pretty much the antithesis of the other side. But what we do is we often start with the right-hand side rather than starting with the left-hand side. We often start with thinking that that's what people want to see, when in reality, they want to see the other side. So we can use that to our advantage through content and through creating a community on the platform. Someone said there is an echo. If anyone could pop in the chat, if they can see that, if they can hear that as well, let me know and I can stick my AirPods in. That's not a problem at all. But thank you very much to whoever that is that let me know. There we go. My chat is disabled. Oh, that's a bit of a nightmare. If anyone, well, you can still use the Q&A. So everyone can let me know if you can hear an echo. It's all good. It's fine. Thank you very much for letting me know, guys. Okay, cool. So another good kind of rule to get yourself into thinking about this kind of stuff is to not try to be everywhere all at once and spread yourself way too thin. So we can think about all the different options out there. I mean, I can probably imagine that you'll think of at least 7 or 8 social media channels, maybe even more off the top of your head right now. So you've got things like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, all the kind of big ones. You've got some less big ones as well, and some protest ones that we're not going to talk about today as well. But also, you know, you are sat there thinking, I need to be on all of these because then I can master that massive audience. I can get, you know, I can just increase and compound that audience that I'm talking to. But in reality, what this does is it actually spreads you too thin. Each of those social media platforms or channels, whatever you want to call them, has got a different need. It's got different requirements, but also it's a different purpose. If you think about TikTok, it's a very, very different purpose to Twitter, sorry. If you think about Instagram, it's a bit of a different purpose to LinkedIn, and they've all got different audiences on them. And the problem is that by putting the same content all over them and spreading yourself way too thin, you're actually leaving an impact and you're leaving an influence on nobody. So by having good intentions and trying to be everywhere and trying to use all of these to your advantage, you're actually putting yourself at a bit of a disadvantage by being on all of them. Now, if you have a massive marketing team and you can be on all of them, then that's great. Absolutely do that. But if you're a financial planning business with, let's say, 8 people or even less than that, even if you're just a one-person business, you will spread yourself too thin by trying to be on all of them, and you'll get next to no results from any of them. A good practice for people who will be watching this and people that I know are in our community is to use 1 or 2 that are going to get the most results. So, for instance, I really only use LinkedIn and Instagram, because those are the 2 that get me the most results. I've tried all the others. They didn't get me any results. So I think, you know, it was fine for me to focus on LinkedIn and Instagram. And I really put a lot of time and energy and effort into those to build that audience, to build that influence, and ultimately to get me leads. So if you're sat there thinking, you know, I need to get started with all of these different social media platforms, actually, it's better to just get started on 1 or 2 at the start and really, really leave an impact on your audience. So think about who you want to leave an impact on, think about your target audience, and then think the old marketing thing of where would they be? Where would they hang out? And really focus on those 2. And I'm giving you permission to do that. So absolutely go and just focus on 1 or 2 that are going to get you the most results. And another thing to remember is that social media is social. If we can think back to that kind of tick and cross that I talked about before about why people use social media, they go on there to be social. They go on there to be humans. They go on there to interact with humans. And I think we sometimes forget this. We sometimes see it like solely as a business opportunity. And ultimately, that's fine. You know, we are out there to get business. But your audience doesn't see it that way. Your audience sees it as somewhere to be social, to find new things out, to explore, to make new friends, and to kind of have interactions with other people. And the social part of social media has almost been lost. It's not business media, it's not advertising media or anything like that, it's social. And if you think about all the algorithms, that common term that we use nowadays, on all the different social media channels, they are directly pointing and they're directly purposed towards creating social elements on the platform. No matter how much advertising revenue or anything like that they bring in every year, ultimately, the thing that is going to make those social media platforms and channels grow is through the social interactions that are on there, because otherwise nobody would use it. If nobody uses it, their advertising revenue goes down. And that's why the algorithms are there. They're there to build that kind of social human-to-human interactions that are on the platform. So if you sometimes think that the algorithm is working against you, it probably is. but you can understand the algorithm and try to remember that social media is social and try to work towards that. And that might sound a bit like something a LinkedIn coach would tell you, but ultimately it is true. It is. Social media is social. And if you can think about your mission and just ignore the kind of creepy American looking bloke on the left-hand side, your mission is to, when you're on social media, and if you can try to get this into your heads, is to become a thought leader. And you might have heard this term before, but just for anyone who hasn't heard it before, what it basically means is that when someone has a question or a query about a certain issue or topic, you are the first person that rushes to their brain. So if we can give me as an example, I don't like using myself an example, but let's just use me for now, because I'm happy to be the scapegoat, is that I am trying to become, and trying is a word to remember in there, to become the thought leader in the document space in financial planning. So when somebody thinks, ooh, I could do with a new financial plan document, or I could do with a new terms of business or client agreement document, who do I know that does that? And if I've done enough on social media to build myself as a thought leader, I will be, if not the first, at least in the top 3 people that they think of when that comes. And that's how you get leads, is by becoming a thought leader. So what you've got to do in this instance is you've got to think of your target audience, think what their problems and their pain points are and what they really want to see from you, and then simply answer those questions and queries. And by doing that, you build up that thought leadership over time. So then eventually, when somebody is ready to say, I want to sort this out, it's become too much of a problem in my life, I need someone to help me out with this, you are the person that they go to, and you're the person that knows how to answer those questions and queries. So if you can have this in your brain the whole time that you're on social media, rather than thinking of it as a fully business opportunity, think of it as a creating thought leadership opportunity. The mindset switches straight away. And just to kind of reiterate a point that I've said a few times in this, is that it is a slow burner. So if you're going on there, and I'm sorry, this might be a hard truth, and it might be something that you now switch off and think, oh, I can't be bothered with that. It is a slow burner. It's going to take at least 12 months, if not longer, to create this thought leadership, because creating thought leadership takes time. Now, that's not to say that you won't get any leads in that 12-month period, but to see proper results, usually what it takes is at least 12 months, sometimes even longer, 18, 24 months, because the amount of content that somebody needs to see from you and the amount of influence that you need to have on somebody takes so much time to create. And that's why most people get stressed out and most people kind of give up on social media or don't stay consistent with it, is because it does take so much time. But it's a bit like investing. If you can see the results over the long term of just putting the hard work in, of just following those good principles, eventually the results will come and they will compound over time. And all of the evidence, all of the case studies have shown that it will work over time, but you just need to have that patience and just realize that it's not you doing anything wrong a lot of the time, despite what I'll say later on. It is the fact that it just takes a long time to actually get this kind of stuff. And it actually does take, and this is what the evidence has shown, it's probably, I mean, this is a bit ridiculous to say this, but the evidence seems to suggest that it takes at least 7 positive interactions before people contact you. So if you can think about that, you need to get yourself in front of people or your audience and have 7 interactions where they go, oh, that was quite a good idea, or yeah, I quite agree with that, or that was really interesting. That's the amount of times that it takes for somebody to at least have you in their mind to want to contact you. And you might be sat there thinking, that's actually not that many. But remember, it's positive interactions. This isn't something where they just see your name and see your face and then scroll past. This is something where they actually resonate, or you leave an impact on them as an audience. So again, just try not to beat yourself up too much with this kind of stuff. It does take a long time. It does take a lot of positive interactions, but the hard work does pay off eventually. So what we're going to do now is, and I don't want to upset anyone here, by the way, as well. So I'm just going to talk through some of the trends that we've seen of some content that seems to be dying. And there are a lot of caveats with this kind of stuff, because not all content is dying. And then some of the stuff that I'm seeing is trending, and some of the stuff that I'm seeing really is thriving at the moment. And a lot of people seem to be getting some good results from it. And if you can try and remember these best practices and best principles that I'm going to tell you here and use it in your content, then hopefully alongside the other stuff that I've just talked about there, if you put them two together, eventually you will get results and you will get leads from social media. Can't guarantee it, But if you do them, the evidence has shown and the case studies have shown that it will work. So let's just go through some dying content. And the first one you'll probably scoff at, and you'll probably be sat there. I can't hear you, by the way, but you'll probably be sat there going, oh, no way, that's not true. And that's why I put a caveat underneath it, but blogs. So what I see a lot of people doing, and it's not just in our profession, it's pretty much everywhere across things like LinkedIn and Twitter and that kind of stuff, is when they post a blog or when they promote their blog on social media, they'll simply put a link to it and let LinkedIn kind of make the little embed on there, and they won't put anything else about why the reader should read it or any incentive for the audience on why this is interesting for them. And the engagement levels on this kind of stuff, as you probably would expect, are ridiculously low. They are so low, nobody reads the blogs. There's no point in even doing it. It's a waste of time. Now, blogs aren't dying content on websites. Blogs are still fantastic for things like SEO, for making your website active, for all that kind of stuff. So you should continue doing blogs, but the way that you promote them on social media should be a little bit different. So what I've said before is, rather than simply posting a link to your blog with no incentive for people to actually read it, break that blog down into some steps of what people can expect from it, give them an incentive to actually read it, what they're going to learn, some interesting points from it. And maybe even if you're feeling confident enough, do a little, 60-second video just explaining about what you're talking about in that recent blog. We're running out of excuses not to use video content. So if you want to really get some impact on your blogs, make sure to do that. But also, the blog should be clickbaity. And I know that might be controversial to say because of all the ridiculous clickbait that is out there, but it is just human nature and common sense that I don't have any buy-in to read something that you've written unless it's going to be useful for me. So tell the audience why they need to know it, stop them from scrolling, tell their brain that they need to know this, and then you'll start to get results from it. So blogs aren't useless, but the way that we promote them seems to be dying. So think of a different way that you can promote them. Technical stuff, I think you probably expect this one, but I do still see a lot of kind of stuff, and it's not so much with this audience that'll be watching this really, but with technical stuff about, what is the lifetime allowance and what tax efficiencies can you use and what tax advantages. It's great stuff that we want to be promoting. It's fine for financial education perspective, but ultimately your audience doesn't need to know that kind of stuff. Well, they do need to know it, but they don't want to hear it from you. What they want to hear from you is how you are going to put that into perspective in their lives. Don't try and compete with Google, because all this stuff already exists on Google and it's already out there. Make it your own, make it into the client's lives, and that's what's really going to leave an impact. So instead of saying what is the lifetime allowance, saying 3 tips on how the lifetime allowance can impact doctors approaching retirement or something. Even that is just a whole lot better than simply just saying what is the lifetime allowance. So the next one that I see is long newsletters and guides, and I see quite a few people are launching like LinkedIn newsletters at the moment, and I don't have anything against these at all. These look fantastic and they're really, really good content. But what I see some people doing is again releasing really long newsletters into the world that have a load of content in them. It's a load of written content, and it's quite dull and quite boring for the audience. So if we can get ourselves into thinking instead of launching interesting content with different ways of using that content and different ways of breaking it down, that is what is going to leave a massive impact on our audience. Another thing is guides. Now, guides seem like a really good idea, and some of them actually are. But the problem is that nobody really has time to read massively long guides anymore on, tax allowances and all that kind of stuff. Nobody really has time. So the art of a good kind of content creator is how to break down that really dull, long information and break it down into digestible format. And that's the sign of a good content creator. So if you can be thinking the whole time, this content is massively long, how can we break this down, or how can we make it digestible for the audience? That's how you'll get most impact from it. And the final one is, again, I had a bit of pushback on this one last time I did this presentation, is testimonials. And again, it seems like a really good idea to use like a Google review or a vouch for review or something like that on your social media. But the problem with it is that your audience doesn't really, trust is huge in our profession. I absolutely agree. But the problem is that it seems a bit self-inflatory. to go to your audience and say, look how amazing we are and look how fantastic our service is. Google reviews, vouch for, unbiased, all that kind of stuff is there for a reason. Let it do their job and let your audience find those. Things like video testimonials and stuff like that, where you can create content from them, they are amazing and talking about the case studies in people's lives. But testimonials where you simply just put, a 5-star review and then maybe some comments underneath it. I used to do this, and I'm now changing a little bit towards actually not doing this because it doesn't get much results ultimately. It really, really doesn't. So again, I'm a bit on the fence with this one, but don't just think that they're going to get you leads anyways. So now that the hard part is over with, let's start to look into a positive sense instead. So there is some content that is really thriving at the moment, and you'll have probably seen a lot of this content out there, but it really is, and people are using it to their advantage and they're getting leads from it. So there's a lot more here for you to digest, and don't worry about taking notes. We'll send this through to you afterwards so you can have a look through them all. And before we start that, I want you to remember the ultimate equation. There's a lot of different ways that you can create amazing content, but the best one I've seen and the best one that we've used and had the most results from is this one here. So it's how to X in Y. And X, if you're thinking about it in an algebra sense, is do something, and Y is in a time scale or a number of steps. So for example, at Doc Vinci, we sometimes put out things like how to build a funky financial plan in 3 steps, for instance. Now you can see what we could just do is we could just put building a financial plan as the kind of title or the content or whatever it might be, but there's no incentive there for the audience. The most searched term on Google is how to. So now in our brains, we are kind of conditioned and we're automatically thinking whenever something comes up, when we want to learn something, we always head to how to do something. So if you can tap into that kind of the brain and think for your audience, what do they want to know? You turn it into a question that they would ask. So how to do something. And then you say, make it accessible, make it affordable in terms of timing or whatever it might be for them. So you say a number of steps. Usually the best number of steps is 3 steps, or a timescale could be 3 months or whatever it might be. But if you can kind of use this equation, start with this equation, your content will actually really start to produce some results. And then if you think of the tools that you're using to actually put that content out there, I don't think it's any surprise for me to tell you that I think 90-second videos are really flying at the moment. Some of them have had varying levels of success. It all depends on the engagement of the videos. So 90-second videos are the kind of way that you want to create them, because that's how TikTok and Instagram seem to be wanting the videos to come by. And if you can get yourself into thinking that way, then these are very, very easy to create, very, very simple, and they're digestible for your audience as well. And you're tapping into the algorithms that are on there. The next one is interactive stuff. So again, I know that they get a lot of stick, and I know that they get a lot of kind of people complaining about them because of how pointless they are or whatever it might be. And I've seen a lot of people not using them anymore, but polls are massive. So asking your audience questions, asking your audience to contribute to something, asking your audience what they think about something or their opinion on something, even if it's a bit controversial. The way that social media works is through engagement. And by people engaging with your stuff and interacting with it, that's how you're going to build that influence. And that's how ultimately you're going to get leads and more followers. So if you could ask your audience questions, and so that they can interact with you and actually give you their opinion, rather than it just being a one-way monologue, if you can think of this as almost like a dialogue or a community, that's where you start to see results as well. So think about, setting out 6 months worth of weekly polls. So just think of what would I want to ask my audience, and what that does, even if they get, a handful of votes, that's still much more engaging for your audience than you putting out there a link to your blog or whatever it might be. So start to get into this way of thinking as well. This one's probably not a surprise, but carousels at the moment seem to be huge on social media. So on Instagram and LinkedIn, certainly. And that is where you put a title slide and then people can scroll to the right. You've probably seen them where it says swipe to the right. Some of them, I've seen one yesterday, it was like 180 slides long. Now, in my opinion, that is a bit too long unless you're really, really engaging. Keep it to 4 or 5 or something like that. Say 3 tips for doing something, and then just create little carousels. If you go on Canva, which is an amazing tool, and I'll never stop banging on about it, and if you pay $11.99, you can get literally thousands of templates for creating this kind of stuff. And if you just pop your brand in there, put some content in there, you can create these kind of carousels at the start in about an hour. As you get more experience, you can create these in a matter of minutes, and it's really digestible, really engaging content for your audience on interesting topics as well. So if you can use the equation of how to X in Y, and then put these into carousels, you will start to see results from your content. And nobody in our profession, or very few people at least, seem to be doing these at the moment. So you can tap into that as well. Podcasts. So again, I'll probably lose some participants when I mention this. And there's a common joke, isn't there, that every financial planner's got a podcast. In reality, not actually that many financial planners have podcasts. And there's this one here recently, which I'm helping Dan launch. It's called Humans versus Retirement. So it's got nothing at all to do with the finance element or the investments element or anything like that you think you might put out there. In reality, it's answering people's questions about a really daunting period of their lives. So what Dan is going to do is just have 10 episodes where he's talking to experts about retirement and about what people go through when they're going through retirement. What that does, though, is it's longer form content that you can then split up into other forms of digestible content. It raises Dan as a thought leader amongst his audience. Even if it's just his clients, it continues to raise that thing of a thought leader amongst them, and it's really useful content for them. It gets his voice across to his audience. It gets his opinions across as well, and it's a really engaging form of content when they're on the dog walk, when they're at the field, when they're on, I don't know, when they're in the car, whatever it might be. You're just constantly there with them and building that thought leadership. So podcasts are huge, and I think that we should probably stop laughing at them and instead think, how can we use these in our profession? Because they are really useful. One that you might not have heard of is something called zero-click content. So this is the idea that if we can think of the opposite of what I talked about before with the blogs, and if we can think of this as keeping people on the platform that they're on. So Thomas Kopelman, who we've had on the Next Gen Planners podcast recently, last year, if you can see here, he's got a massive following on Twitter, and he's done it all by simply posting amazing content just on Twitter. So he doesn't link out to anything else. He doesn't link out to his blogs, or he doesn't link out to YouTube or anything like that. He keeps the content on Twitter, makes it very fast, very quick, very digestible for his audience, so that they come across it all the time, and they just keep on seeing his face, seeing his great opinions, positively interacting with him. And then eventually, whenever they've got a problem, whatever it might be, they do come to him. And it's been shown. I think he gets like 90% of his clients from Twitter, which is amazing to think of in our profession. And he's done that through zero-click content. So if you can say how to do something in 150 words and don't link out to anything else, so don't link to your blog or don't link to YouTube or anything like that, you will start to see results from that. And you can use it on Twitter and LinkedIn and a lot of the other social media platforms as well. So try and think about how you might be able to use that. This is a bit of a funny one, but giveaways. So I've actually found a massive amount of results from these. So some of you guys in the audience might have actually taken part in one of these, but basically what I do is I just create a template for something or an example of something, and then just ask the audience to leave a wave in the comments if they want a copy of it. So I'm giving them something which ultimately, is not a massive amount of value to me. I'm giving it them for free. And what that does is it raises the engagement on the post, and it raises the engagement everywhere else as well. So they engage with it, it goes in front of their audience, it gets the kind of interactions levels up, but also you're adding value to their lives. So if you can think about how to use these amongst your audience, I know it might sound difficult to try and think of that, but if you can just sit down for an hour and just think, what might I give away to my audience? It might be a one-page financial plan example, or it might be I don't know, just a quick guide or something like that. An infographic maybe, and just say, leave a quick wave in the comments if you want an example of this. You will start to get results from that as well, because people can't resist wanting to see it. They are nosy, so they do want to see this kind of stuff. An exciting one at the moment, and something that I'm helping a firm with, is client Q&As. So rather than just thinking of it as a case study of how amazing you are as a financial planning business, ask them questions about their lives and get them to contribute some content to you. So this is called user-generated content, or UGC, and this is where your clients actually create your content for you. So really, you're you're feeding two birds with one stone. They're doing your content for you, but it's also very engaging and it gets them involved in the process as well. So ask them questions about their lives, where they've been, what they've been doing, and then put it out there to the world. So your audience can see that there's similar people like them who are in your network, who are in your sphere of influence. These are really rising at the moment and they're super duper exciting. Your clients love to be involved in this kind of stuff. So if you can just ask a couple of your clients just to get involved with this, that is a really good form of content as well. Again, webinars, I keep on banging on about this, but I really don't think we're using webinars enough in our profession. Partly because some people have tried them and they maybe didn't get a lot of results from them. Again, though, you're not going to get a lot of results at the start. This kind of stuff needs to be worked on. So an example at the moment that I'm seeing is from Sophia Lurch Thompson, and she's working with Rachel Harris from Accountancy. So it's an accountant and a financial planner. They're doing a joint webinar called Tax on Time, and it's tax year-end financial planning for business owners. So it's Sophia's audience meeting Rachel's audience in one place, and the amount of thought leadership that they're going to swap between each other will be incredible. Really useful content for the audience, and they're fantastic forms of content because you can break them up and digest them into other pieces of content as well. So there's no need to do them on your own. You can do them on your own if you want to, but you can team up with accountants, solicitors, therapists, whatever it might be, and go out there and team up with them to create amazing content in webinars. But also you can do them for yourself. They're free. A lot of the time, Zoom is very, very affordable. You probably have Zoom already. They're very simple to create and they don't need that much time. If you can do them in 30 minutes, that is amazing. And what you can then do is everyone who signs up to that webinar, you can move them into your email list and then start to target them with emails as well. And, it just it's a self-sufficient system. But yeah, there's lots of ways of doing that. So finally then, if you want to take a screenshot of this slide, that's absolutely fine. So there are some common ways to succeed and hopefully some patterns that you've realized throughout this webinar. So the first one is to get started, show up consistently and don't stop. If you say, yeah, I'm going to do this in 3 months' time when I've got my head straight, you'll never do it. Do it today, do it tomorrow, get started this week, because otherwise you'll never get started. And the most important thing is to show up consistently. So really, really do think to yourself, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it for the next 6 months or 12 months or whatever it might be. And I'm not going to give up. If you're not going to get in that frame of mind and you're going to start something for a week and then leave it for 6 months before you do it again, there's no point in even doing it in the first place. So get started, show up consistently and don't stop. What I'd like to do is comment on other people's posts and start to create a community. So I set myself a task every day of 10 minutes just to go on other people's posts, like them, comment on them, and start to really create that engagement. Because remember that people go on social media to create that community, to make friends and relationships. So if you can comment on other people's posts and start to create that community, you'll get results. Third one is to talk about benefits, not features. So this is a pretty much first principles of marketing thing, but it's to talk about how what you do benefits somebody's life rather than the features of what you do. So rather than talking about tax planning or cash flow modeling or anything like that, which are ultimately the tools that you use, talk about how they impact people's lives instead, and talk about the transformations that you make. The fourth one is to schedule posts, but with a caveat of not too much. So you can use tools like Hootsuite and Buffer and things like that to schedule posts, but the problem with that is that then you get into a rhythm of not engaging with people when they comment on your posts. So if you can schedule some posts, but also leave some time to comment and to engage with other people and see it as an active thing on social media. Don't just leave it as something that automatically happens every day on your social media. Also be careful because big events, like for instance, last year when the Queen died, a lot of people forgot to turn off their post scheduling, and they were still posting random stuff when everyone else pretty much went quiet. So you've got to be careful with it and just make sure that you are keeping on top of it when you're on there. Fifth one is to aim for engagement and conversation. So engagement is the one that is going to get you the most results. Don't worry too much, again, about likes. So likes don't lead to leads. Likes don't get you anything ultimately. What you're aiming for is conversation. You're aiming for engagement on your post, and you're aiming to leave an influence on your audience. And ultimately, likes don't do anything because it's so easy to like something, but it's a bit more difficult to engage with something. So you want to overcome that barrier with your audience. You want to make them engage with you. Number 6 is a bit of a careful one. Ignore what everybody else is doing, as in don't compare yourself to what everyone else is doing. Stay in your lane, go on, do your own thing. but do take examples of stuff that works from other people. So do make sure to look at what everybody else is doing and say, oh, that works and that doesn't, and do the things that works, but ignore what everybody else should be telling you that you need to be doing or anything like that. Ultimately, you can just ignore me if you want to, but hopefully the things that we've talked about today have been useful for you. And then finally is to show us your face. So we're going on social media to be social. We're going on there to be humans. So you'll often see a lot of posts which are simply just a selfie. They get a lot more engagement than faceless posts. I know it might sound weird, and I know it might kind of take a lot to get over, but those facial elements of social media are huge, and that's why videos and stuff like that seems to work more. So if you can just put your face in things, you'll get a lot more results from them, and you will succeed on social media. So for anyone who doesn't want to hear me talk about the hero product, you can disappear now. But yeah, hopefully that's been very, very useful for you. Just a quick run through of what we've been, what the whole point of this webinar today is. We have something at Doc Vinci called the hero product. So we do build people marketing plans and teach you how to communicate with clients better than anyone else. Content plans, strategy, ways to engage with your audience over a 12-month period. We help financial planners build those really amazing marketing plans and communicate with your clients better than you ever thought you could. But on the other side, the more exciting side perhaps, is the unlimited documents. So this is to revolutionize your client experience, building financial plans, revolutionizing client agreements in terms of business, and all those kind of dual disclosure documents that we've seen. We're really working hard to revolutionize those for you guys and ultimately improve that client experience and get more referrals and get more leads from your clients. And if you want to book a call with me, I'm a millennial, so you can scan the QR code on the screen there, or I'm going to send an email tomorrow with this recording, so you can just book a call with me on that email tomorrow if you want to. But thank you very, very much. And if you do have any questions, please do let me know. I think there's some in there. Well, I think there's some. It might just be people saying hello, but if you do want to say hello in the chat, that's absolutely fine. There's just one question, which is, well, I think it might just be a comment actually from Stephen. It says, is the Canva tutorial coming? I'm sure I answered a poll on this. Yes, we will be doing, because people actually answered yes to a poll about doing a Canva tutorial in the Next Gen community. We will be doing that, guys, as well. So we'll be doing that over the next couple of months for you, of course. A few people just saying thank you. No, thank you. Thank you so much for coming along to this and giving your time up for me on this Tuesday morning when you're no doubt very, very busy. If you do need any help with this kind of stuff, I will be sending you an email tomorrow, so just reply to that. But yeah, engage with me, connect with me, and I'm sure that we'll see you all very, very soon. So have a lovely rest of the week. Thank you very much, and see you all very, very soon. Bye-bye.